Hey folks, how you doing? My name's Dave McRae. For over 40 years, the debate around Poltergeist has been stuck in frustrating territory. Either Steven Spielberg secretly directed the film, or Tobe Hooper did, and the rumors are really unfair. But the truth is much more complicated and much more nuanced than that. You see, Poltergeist isn't a case of one man directing and the other taking credit. It's a strange hybrid born out of studio politics, creative overlap, and two filmmakers whose sensibilities couldn't be more different. Let's start with the basics. Tobe Hooper is the credited director. That we do know. He was physically on set, working with actors, developing scenes, and he assembled the first cut in the editing room. Spielberg even wrote a letter to Tobe Hooper, which later circulated publicly, saying Hooper deserved full credit for directing Poltergeist. That wasn't empty PR. I mean, there are cast and crew who recall Hooper directing, communicating with the DP, and shaping the film day to day. However, here's where things get a little messy. You see, Spielberg wasn't just a producer. He was an unusually hands-on producer on Poltergeist, involved to a degree that blurred the lines. He storyboarded sequences, shaped the tone, influenced the emotional beats, supervised second unit shots, and was constantly present on set. Some crew members described him as directing by proxy. Others said Hooper directed, but Spielberg steered the ship. Both can be true at the same time, and in this case, they likely are. It was a push-pull dynamic, not one man replacing the other. And you see, Spielberg's fingerprints are all over the finished film. The suburban setting, the family-first emotional arc, the sense of awe and wonder and magic threaded throughout the terror, the polished production value and camera work. I mean, that is unmistakably Spielberg's brand, especially at that time. Released the same summer as E.T., it fits far more naturally into Spielberg's filmography than Hooper's. Even the film's editor, Michael Kahn, was Spielberg's editor of choice, giving Poltergeist the same rhythm and pacing associated with Spielberg films. This contrast becomes even clearer when you look at Hooper's career before and after Poltergeist. You see, before 1982, Hooper's filmography included films like The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Eaten Alive, Salem's Lot, and The Funhouse. With the exception of Salem's Lot, his work leaned gritty and raw and chaotic, a totally different filmmaking language. After Poltergeist, rather than rising into the mainstream studio system because of a huge box office blockbuster success, Hooper signed a multi-picture deal with Cannon Films, a company known for more low-budget genre fare. His next movies were Life Force, a $25 million sci-fi horror hybrid that flopped, Invaders from Mars, also underperformed, and finally, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which swung into dark comedy and gore territory. Now, none of these films resemble Poltergeist in tone or polish, so even though Poltergeist was a massive studio hit, it didn't shift Hooper's career upward the way you'd expect. Instead, it remains an outlier in his filmography, a film that feels very Spielbergian because Spielberg shaped so much of the final product. Now, this is the nuance that horror fans often overlook. Acknowledging Spielberg's heavy creative influence doesn't mean Hooper was a fraud or uninvolved. But denying Spielberg's impact also ignores the mountain of evidence, first-hand accounts, stylistic fingerprints, and post-production control that shows how deeply he steered the project. It's not that Hooper didn't direct it, and it's not that Spielberg ghost-directed the entire film. It's not that at all. It's that the movie sits in a weird overlapping space between two very different filmmakers under a very unusual set of circumstances. The defensiveness in the horror community comes from history. For decades, horror filmmakers were dismissed, belittled, or erased from mainstream recognition. So when people claim Spielberg directed Poltergeist, horror fans hear it as, Hooper wasn't talented enough to direct a mainstream studio blockbuster, or horror directors can't handle big productions. They see it as undermining a horror legend. And that emotional reaction is completely understandable, but it also misses the more interesting truth. Poltergeist is the rare blockbuster where authorship really is shared, not stolen. One of the clearest examples of Spielberg's unusually strong presence on set comes from actress Zelda Rubinstein, who stated in a 2007 interview with Ain't It Cool News that Spielberg personally directed her scenes during her 6 days of shooting. Her exact words were, quote, "I can tell you that Steven Spielberg directed me. Tobe set up the shots and Steven made the adjustments," end quote. As the film's writer and producer, it would make sense for Spielberg to be involved creatively, but multiple cast and crew testimonials confirm that his role went far beyond what is typically expected in those positions. The Directors Guild of America even investigated whether Spielberg's involvement had crossed professional boundaries, which underscores just how unusual the situation was. That said, not every actor interpreted things the same way. Oliver Robbins, who played Robbie, has consistently downplayed the idea that Spielberg directed the entire film, saying only that Spielberg's constant activity on set is what fuels the controversy, and that the debate, quote, will never go away, end quote. His comments don't confirm Spielberg directing his performances, they simply acknowledge Spielberg's visible presence, which left a strong impression on the cast. But as you can see here in this photo which I showed earlier, there's Spielberg right there, very active on a set, with Robbie being swallowed by the tree. These contrasting accounts illustrate why Poltergeist remains such a gray area. There are credible testimonials both pointing to Hooper's direction and Spielberg's unusually hands-on involvement. So, in the end, it isn't black and white because the film wasn't made in a black and white way. Yes, Tobe Hooper did direct Poltergeist, but to deny that Spielberg's paws and fingerprints aren't all over that movie is just as ignorant as saying that Tobe Hooper had nothing to do with it. So, as a result, the film kind of belongs to both of them. One of the oddest, most fascinating collaborations in horror history, and one that still sparks debate because it doesn't fit neatly into one category or the other. And that's what makes it worth analyzing still all these years later. My name's Dave McRae. Cheers.